Thank you for watching. This is Richard here with Wisdom Investor. And today we're going to look at a question from a viewer who says they're in retirement age or close to retirement age and want to know if they should pay off the mortgage when they retire and invest the money. Okay, we're going to take a look at this question here. It's a great question here, especially for all retirees. Housing costs is one of the biggest costs out there. So in this case, should we go ahead and pay off the mortgage and bring down the housing cost, or should we take that money and invest it instead? So we're going to look at that. If you have any comments on this, we're going to break it down to the positives and negatives. If you have any additional positives and negatives, let us know. It will definitely help in this decision. So let's take a look here at the question. I currently have a home with a mortgage balance of $130,000 and the value of the house is around $200,000. I'm paying a 4% interest rate on a 30-year fix. My question, should I pay off the balance, or would it make sense to put this money to work in the market and attract additional income? So in this case, if they paid off that balance, they would have the house paid for, or should they keep that $130,000 in their pocket and invest it and let that money grow and then just continue to pay the monthly payment? So if they could earn on that $130,000 more than 4% is what they're paying on it, that could be a good decision. But we're going to break this down to the positives and negatives of paying off the mortgage or not paying off the mortgage. So let's take a look here. One, this would lower expenses in retirement. Housing cost is one of the largest expenses in retirement. So that would help reduce a big portion of housing costs if they paid it off. So that would be a positive. Peace of mind factor. So they would have this paid off and they get that peace of mind factor working for them. They would not have to worry about making that monthly payment. They know that their expenses are down and their house is free and clear. They're in good shape. Okay, so that would be a positive also, peace of mind factor. They could also pay off the mortgage and sell the house and move to a lower cost area. Okay, that would be a possibility. And now they may be able to move into an area where they buy the new home, for example, or get a home at a lower mortgage, and maybe that would help the situation. Now, I personally don't like taking out new mortgages while going into retirement. That's at least 15 to 30 years of payments. I don't recommend people taking out new mortgages around retirement. Remember, the American dream here is to get the house paid for and live a debt-free life. Okay, so those are some of the positives. We're going to look at some of the negatives here. One, if they do not pay this off, they're still going to have that $130,000 mortgage. They're still going to have higher housing costs. They'll still be paying for the housing costs, so they'll still need money in the bank to pay for that house. Okay, so we don't know exactly what the payment is, but they would have to have funds in the bank, and it would take away from that peace of mind factor. So as we said here, perhaps less peace of mind since the mortgage still has to be paid, and not sure where the income will come from in the future since there is no job. So you would have to analyze your income situation. You go into retirement, you're not going to have the job, you're going to have perhaps your Social Security and some investments. Is that going to be enough to pay for the mortgage or the rent? You lose your mortgage interest and tax deduction on your income tax if you go ahead and pay off the mortgage. So that would be a negative. Okay, less cash in the bank. If they paid off that $130,000 mortgage, that's less cash they have in the bank in the event of emergency or some additional expenses that come along. So they have to consider that. Another thing to look at is investment opportunity. Now, yes, we could take that $130,000 instead of putting it into the mortgage, we could invest it. Now, the good news is the S&P 500 has been up 9.55% the past 15 years. It's up 13.82%. So that would be a better investment than investing it into a 4% mortgage. So let's just take a look at this. Here's some statistics on the S&P 500 here from Morningstar. 15 years, it's earned 9.55. 5 years, 13.82. The last year, 17.83. So definitely that is a consideration. Do I invest the difference? Now, it's a double-edged sword, and financial markets may not grow as fast. So let's take a look at this. Let's look at the S&P 500. We're talking about the S&P 500. And here's a chart all the way back to 1994. So we have the S&P 500 moves up, and then it can go 2 or 3 years down, up, and 2 or 3 years down. And we've been on a nice move higher since 2009. Now, the question is this always going to continue going straight up? History shows the market works in cycles. There's a good possibility we're closer to some kind of a down move than this continuing higher. I don't know if that's a year or 2 years or 3 or 4 years from now, but that is a factor. So if you take those numbers, it grew, S&P 500 grew 9.55% over the last 15 years. Now, and we're anticipating a nice return to outperform that mortgage of 4%. That could change, and if we get into a declining market, then the value of that money could actually decrease, okay, if it's invested. So that is something to consider. It's a double-edged sword. Yes, it can grow, but no, be very careful, okay? So let's take a look at our questions here. Okay, so we got to be careful on number 5 there, investment opportunity. This is if we do not pay off the mortgage, the negatives to paying off the mortgage. If you have the thoughts of paying off your mortgage, you do not want to use your IRA to pay off the mortgage. There is a penalty for doing that, and it can cost you in taxes. Binding up money and equity, which cannot be used. So a negative to paying off the mortgage would be you're binding up your money and you cannot use this. Okay, it would be stuck in the house, and I'm sure you could take some home equity loans and things like that, but that's more payments, more interest. So just to kind of wrap it up, and again, if you have some other ideas on this, leave your comments. We appreciate your comments here. So in this case, we don't know how much cash the person has, but we can assume they may have at least $250,000 to pay off the $130,000 mortgage and have some left over. Okay, so if we assume they had $250,000, after paying off that mortgage, they would be left with about $120,000 in cash. That takes a good chunk in the event they need additional money for emergencies or expenses down the road. Okay, so that would be a negative to paying off the mortgage. They would be binding up a lot of their money, and they wouldn't have near as much in the event of an emergency. If we assume they had, say, $1 million saved, then paying off the $130,000 mortgage would only be a dent in their savings, and there would be no home expenses in the future. So if they had $1 million, $200 million, $3 million, it really wouldn't make a lot of difference. They would lose their mortgage and tax deductions. So my answer on this would be to hold on to the mortgage for now and just make the payments. Okay, that would be my final answer on this, and my analysis here is I would hold on to the money. First of all, I don't know the exact amount of cash that they have there, but I would hold on to it and continue paying the mortgage off, assuming they have plenty of money to make the payment, and then invest the money. I would be very careful. If we get into downturns, I would make sure I have stops on the money or on my investments in the event we get into a downturn. So that's my answer to this question. I appreciate everyone listening. Leave your comments on what you think this person should do in retirement with their mortgage. Thanks for watching.